Professor, what is the reason and the purpose for the colors that pertain particularly to each Orisha?
All right, to understand this part of Ifa, to understand this subject of Ifa, it is very important first to go to the science and to understand certain kind of processes that we are having constantly in nature in order to illustrate this part of Ifa. Remember that the orishas are energies. They are the natural part of that kind of information that we call Ifa. Remember that when Olodumare decided to create what we call existence, he created first the information. And the natural part of this information or state of this information is energy. Energy is what any kind of system needs in order to produce or work. So it means that the orishas are those kind of energies that make all the systems in nature to work, or work in this case. The orisha in this case are energies. But when we are talking about energy, we are talking about different levels of heat. And different levels of heat produces different levels of colors. When the orishas are working, when they are working, in order to produce existence, in order to produce the movement or life, they are producing different levels of heat, different levels of colors. So that's why each of the orisha are, in a way, when they are working, represented or identified by the color. Because most of the work that they do, or most of the work that they make exist or produce, in this case, is a kind of heat that is relieved. If it is a kind of heat that is relieved, in this case, we are talking about a color that pertains to an orisha. For example, when heat is produced, we are talking about a kind of vibration that is produced, because heat is the result, the output of that vibration. That vibration is the vibration, for example, of the atom in nature. When this vibration of the atom in nature is produced, some kind of heat is relieved. So we are talking about what? The amount of vibration that is produced when that kind of heat or that kind of work is having or taking part. When we're talking about vibration, we're talking about frequencies. What is a frequency? Frequency is the amount of vibration in 1 second. And it is represented in a kind of wave that exists in nature. Remember that what we call atom, what we call energy, it is represented in nature in form of wave. Wave of disturbances in the vacuum. And we know that the wave has a crest or highest point, and has a trough or a lowest point. It's like the wave of, for example, the wave of the water of the sea. This highest point or crest and the lowest point or trough, in this case, we are talking about a cycle that this wave is making. When this cycle is taking part, in that moment, is going through a kind of imaginary line. Every time that this cycle is taking part, is a vibration. So we are talking about vibration. The amount of times that this cycle is taking part, is taking place, all right? The amount in 1 second is what we call frequencies. And the amount of frequencies is the one that is going to produce the color or heat. When this wave or wavelength are long, the frequencies are lower. At the same time, that kind of wave is going slow. In this case, slower. So, less frequency, in this case, less energy. So the different energies or frequencies of energies are important in that kind of process of life, because not always we need the same frequency to do certain work. For example, let's say that in order to produce, for example, or to make, let's say, a car run, we need more energy. So the frequencies are supposed to be shorter. So it's supposed to be higher frequencies. So the combination of those kind of frequencies, the combination of those heat, the combination of those manifestation of energy in the different wavelength, they are the manifestation of the Orisha in life, inside us, inside the plants, inside the animals, in general, inside the universe, in nature. That's why when we are reading Ifa, that kind of metaphor that we find in Ifa about the different stories and the different treaties and deal relationship that is manifested in those stories, they are the different, is a way, metaphorically, to speak about the work that the Orisha do in life. For example, when we are talking about the color red, we are talking about Shango. And when we are talking about Shango, we are talking about the life or the work that Shango do in life, in nature. The different manifestation of that kind of energy, the different manifestation of that kind of information working in nature, in synergy with the different, some other frequencies some other Orishas. And that kind of relationship between each other, among each other, is the kind of frequencies, or is the kind of color, is the kind of story that we read. When we are reading that story, we are talking about the different work that they represent in nature. Most of the work that Shango produces is made of that kind of range of the different levels of the color red. Dark red, light red, maybe combined with a yellow color, in this case orange color, and we are talking about nanometers of frequencies. We are talking about the different frequencies or wavelength of heat, of the energy. So this is what we call the representation of the color, which identify the different Orisha. The different Orisha are identified because of their work, their role that they play in nature. And each of those manifestation or role that they play in nature is manifested in a kind of heat that is relieved in the moment that they are working, or in the moment that they are combining their effort together, 2, 3 Orishas at the same time in order to make one process, or to make that system to do some kind of work. For example, in nature, when we take a beam of light, the beam of light is white, and we made that beam of light to go through a prism, we are going to get different levels of that beam of light, because that is heat. Different levels of heat. We are talking about what? We are talking about the different level and colors at the same time. Because different levels of heat, they have, each of them, a color according to the wavelength. So, Batala represents what? The white beam of light. Oh yeah, the different colors that are produced when this beam of light goes through the prism. In nature, that prism, for example, is the ionosphere, where part of that light remained, like, for example, the ultraviolet B and C, and only the ultraviolet A is the one that go through, coming down to us. When Olodumare decided to create what we call existence, he created first the information. And the natural part of this information, or state of this information, is energy. Energy is what any kind of system needs in nature in order to illustrate this part of Ifa. Remember that the Orishas are energies. They are the natural part of that kind of information that we call Ifa. Remember that to understand this part of Ifa, to understand this subject of Ifa, it is very important first to go to the science and to understand certain kind of processes that we are having constantly in order to produce or work. So it means that the Orishas are those kind of energies that make all the systems in nature to work, or work in this case.
Professor, what is the reason and the purpose for the colors that pertain particularly to each Orisha?
All right.